In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at this knife. This is from Ozark Trail. It's a 7.5-inch folding knife, and we are going to take a look at it and why it is so controversial right now. Stick around. So this little pocket knife has kind of taken the internet by storm. A lot of people have been posting about it, doing videos on it. I've done a couple shorts on it. I've shown it on my Facebook group and in my Instagram. And it's either a knife that you love or you hate. And now what's interesting is the knife bros, the people who are really into high-end collectible knives, seem to absolutely hate this knife and love to dog on it and talk about what a big POS it is. And then there's the other side of the coin where there are people who just love this knife because it's so darn affordable. This thing is under $10 out the door at Walmart. And so here is the OD Green model. This just came available on walmart.com, and there's also a black handled model, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But the specs on this knife is what makes it so interesting. So it's a 7.5-inch folding knife. It's D2 high carbon steel, injected molded handles. We have 3.25-inch blade, and then there's a 4.25-inch handle, making for roughly a 7.5-inch overall knife. There is a slide lock, which is very reminiscent, of course, of the Benchmade bug out, and I believe they call that their axis lock. Very similar to that. Of course, in the Ozark Trail, they're just calling it a side lock. And as you can tell, you can flip this thing open pretty easily and quickly with that thumb stud. So there is the thumb stud right there. The newer models have this pocket clip that is actually reversible to the other side. So if you want to carry left or right pocket, you can. The first models of these, when they came out, that was not an option, but now the newer ones have this, which I think is a great upgrade. And then also I noticed that the orange models, the newer ones, have a brighter, more high-vis orange color to them, whereas the first generation was kind of a dull, burnt orange color, not very attractive. This is much cooler. And then, like I said, we have the brand new OD Green that is available, and there is a black handled model. So you have three options for colors when picking these out, if you can get a hold of them, because these have become very popular. What's happening is guys are actually buying these things and then going on eBay and selling them at an exorbitant price, you know, doing a markup on them, because the orange ones in particular are selling out at the Walmart stores very quickly. Once they hit the stores, they're gone. But I will say, as of now, as of this video being shot in June, I'm seeing these turn up at all the Walmarts in my area. There seem to be plenty of them, so I think there's been a pretty big resupply from Walmart, which is good news for us. So what I want to do is I want to open these up, and we're going to test sharpness out of the package, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put it through some destruction of cutting cardboard and see how that edge is holding up over some time. Pretty easy packaging to get into. It's got a little blade protector right there. There it is. That is a clean, fresh blade. All right, let's cut some paper and test this. All right, here's some standard copier paper that we are going to use for our initial test. And as knife people, we always, like to see how a knife cuts through paper. And that glides through pretty nicely right out of the package. Could it be better? Yeah, probably. I mean, but I can't. Look at that. How can I fault that? That's a pretty decent edge. Now, by comparison, this is the knife that I've been carrying for, what did I say, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. Okay, it's dragging. Oh, there we go. Caught a little bit. Not bad. Probably needs a touch-up. and I have been using it. Do I use it daily? No, not always. Sometimes it just sits in my pocket, but I do. With my job and being at home, I tend to cut a lot of stuff, paper and boxes. So after 6 to 8 weeks, this seems to be doing pretty decent, but it hasn't been put through a lot of heavy duty usage. So there's our fresh blade. Now let's do some box cutting. So there's the old Walmart box. You just got it in the mail. You flip out your trusty EDC pocket knife, and the first thing you do is you cut the tape. And that box was glued, so it didn't come open right away. Okay, so now you have your box sitting at home, and it's like, oh man, I got to cut this thing up, get it ready for the garbage. I can't just put it out in the garbage like that. I don't have use for it today, so let's break down this box. Well, this is how I would do it normally. I would just start cutting it apart. And since we're going to be testing edge retention, cutting through several layers of cardboard. Okay, so this is Atwood Battle Rope. Pretty thick stuff, much thicker than standard 550 cord. So we'll cut off a hunk here. That seemed to cut it pretty well. Sliced right through that, and then we'll just do some repeated cuts of pieces. There we go, just slice through it, just drag it through, nice and easy. Paper cutting test. Oh, that dragged. Oh, there we go, I got it. Is this a definitive test? No. Tests need, of course, really need to be longer. But there seems to be just a little bit of drag at the start of the cut. But once it bites in, then it does okay. There we go. All right, so how would I touch this knife up? Well, I really like Work Sharp knife sharpeners, and I really like this little field sharpener of theirs. I've had this for quite a while, and I'm a big fan of the ceramic rod for touching up blades, because ceramic, in my opinion, is not highly aggressive, so you don't have to worry that you're going to ruin your knife. And with the Work Sharp, it's got this nice guide to it. That's a 20-degree guide for the ceramic rod. And I can just draw that down. And then flip it over. And you just need to apply light pressure. Kind of hit on the edge here a little bit on the tip. Make sure I get that. And then what's cool about this Work Sharp, it's got a rough side out piece of leather to it, so that's your strop. And I put, a long time ago, I put some compound on it, but I don't really put much compound on this. You can, if you want, put more. But basically what we're doing is we're just stropping out that edge. Where that feels really nice. And then of course the old fingernail test, which I'm never a big fan of doing that, but I understand why we do that. See, that's just shaving off the fingernail, and then arm hair test. Not super great. It's pulling some hair up. It's not shaving it. So we go back to a fresh, clean piece of paper. And then of course what you can do is, with this Work Sharp, it's got the different grit plates, and you can do the same thing if you really want to get a little more, a better sharpening to it. And I don't, I'm not much of a steel snob. I know, a lot of guys are into the super steels these days, the Magna cuts and all that kind of stuff. I don't mind D2. I've never really had an issue with D2. My understanding is it's a harder carbon steel. And then you can just touch it up a little bit with your ceramic. And then okay. I don't know. There's okay, so why does everybody hate this knife so much? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, obviously, this has a lot of similarities and similar looks to the Benchmade bug out. And for people who are really in the knife community who collect, I think they find that offensive, that it looks similar to a Benchmade bug out. It's not a direct copy by any means. There are some key differences in how it looks, but it is similar. And then the other thing that I think, of course, knife snobs always have an issue with is just, it's a Chinese-made cheap pocket knife, $10, made in China, mass-produced in a factory. What I find interesting about those kind of comments is there's a lot of other knife brands that come out of China that people have no problem purchasing and spending a lot more money on, and they're good knives, don't get me wrong, and I'm not going to name those brands because we all know what they are. We know what the knife collectors like. So those are those brands that are out there that are specifically made in China, and people will spend all kinds of money on them and think they're the greatest knife in the world. But as soon as you put Ozark Trail on it and sell it at a Walmart, now all of a sudden it's a big piece of crap and it's not worth your time and you should avoid it and you're a horrible person for owning one. The reason that I love this knife so much is because it is affordable and it performs. It is just what it's supposed to do. I don't have any expectations on this knife other than what it can do for a $10 knife. I realize it's a $10 knife. I realize that it is not the greatest knife in the world, but I also have never had any issues with it. It has been sturdy, strong, held up well, and for the past 2 months, I've done all the typical tasks that everybody does: cut paper, cardboard, envelopes, string, tags, all that good stuff that we do with our EDC knife. And I have not sharpened this thing since I got it, and it seems to be doing fairly well. So heat treat is all right. Now, of course, with these cheaper pocket knives, you don't know what the heat treat's going to be like, and you don't know if it's going to be consistent from batch to batch. So far, no issues. Mine's been holding up. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching my videos. Be sure to check out the channel. New videos releasing every week. I will be getting out to the field soon to do some reviews. I'm healing up from my surgery quite well, and hopefully I will see you guys soon. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Prepared Wanderer. Stay sharp.